Welcome to another DMI Economic Development Committee. Hope you guys are all doing well, enjoying this beautiful day. It's nice to see you. Hi, Tara. Hi, Matt. Hi, Carol Ann. Hi, Ron. Hi, Troy. Welcome back. It's good to see you. Good morning, Tara. Well, maybe we'll see you for lunch too at Rotary. Hopefully. Hope everyone is doing well. Lots happening downtown. And speaking of lots happening downtown, we have a six-time Iron Woman as our presenter today. You're welcome for that, Pam. Finished again this year. I don't know what to say. It is just amazing. So we are so excited. And the presentation that MG&E and Vanderwall have put together this morning is really impressive about the importance of downtown. So I'm very thankful. This session is being recorded as well, just a note too. So if you want to see it later, please let us know. But as always, we're going to start with our very esteemed chair. And I had a brilliant idea yesterday. I'm sure she had more than just one brilliant idea, but at least one brilliant idea. Ann Morrison. Good morning, Ann. How are you?
Good morning, Jason. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here on this special day. We're on a Wednesday today because tomorrow is Yom Kippur. So wishing a good day to everyone who observes that holiday. And thank you, Pam, for being here. I've heard a lot about this presentation. I know Jason said he's seen it like 7 times in different formats, but I have never seen it. And I think this will be new information for a lot of the folks on today's meeting. So thank you for being here. Jason, I don't have any announcements that should be news to this group, but in case you haven't heard, we are having our Dmi Annual Celebration, which is a little departure from our annual dinner, and that is coming up on Monday, September 27th from 4:30 to 8 p.m. outside at the Monona Terrace rooftop. And Jason can tell you a little bit more of that, but we really would love to sell out that event, and we would love to see you all there. If you can't come and you want to sponsor someone else to be there, it's a great way before we all go in for the winter to celebrate our beautiful lakefront in downtown. So I hope that I will see you all there. I will certainly be there. The other announcements, I think I'll turn over to you, Jason. I don't know if you want to rattle off your sheet, but night market is the big one on my list too, which is tomorrow night downtown. So before Pam begins, do you want to give the other announcements, Jason?
Absolutely, yes. So thank you, Ann. Please join us at the annual celebration Monday, September 27th. 4:30 to 8 p.m. It's going to be we're doing things different this year. It's not a sit-down dinner. We're trying new things. It's outside. So if you've ever been on the top of the rooftop for day dances or any other events, you got to get there. Just stunning views of downtown, the capital of MLK. It's fantastic. So please join us. There is limited capacity, so get your tickets now. The amazing link artist, Madeline Plummer, has put a link in the chat, so we're very thankful for that. Also, a plug that Ann said, night market, please join us. Our friends at Madison Central Business Improvement District do an amazing job with the night market. Tomorrow's an extra special night market. It's helping to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, the beginning, which actually is today. The beginning of it is today. So the BID and their friends at the Latino Chamber of Commerce have some great music, some amazing vendors. Just going to be a great night. They've got 80 vendors total coming to the night market. So please join us. And it is the full length of State Street, the 1 through 600 blocks, which is very exciting. If you didn't go last month, amazing. The weather looks great again. Also, the Downtowners have an event tomorrow night too, right during it as well at Graf. So please join us there. And now on the DMI side, we've got 3 other events. This Friday, we've got our third in our quarterly series, the Madison Milwaukee Downtown Exchange. This is a meeting between us and our friends at the Milwaukee Downtown, the BID there, which talks about how we can create better relationships between our 2 cities. We have another important topic, the future of transportation, and a panel discussion with 2 people from Milwaukee and 2 people from Madison giving their presentation on Friday, the 17th, from 8 to 9 a.m. That's going to be virtual. Please check out our website there. And mention the annual celebration. Last, I'll mention our next What's Up Downtown breakfast, which is virtual, but we have an amazing speaker. It is a new date too. It's Thursday, the 30th, not the 23rd. We had to make a date change. The 30th from 8 to 9. And we have none other than the new athletic director, Chris McIntosh. So one of his first public appearances. Be great to have you all there. We have time for question and answer and see how the Badgers are doing from a former Badger himself. There's going to be live music at our celebration, and it says she's right. We're doing things very different this year. We've got hopefully a couple of musical acts. We're working on all of that now. So please join us at the annual celebration. Now, speaking of celebrations, let's celebrate Pam again for her amazing 6th Ironman. She is going to pummel me when she sees me next. Amazing work, Ann, but the presentation that she's about to give, I have literally seen it 10 times, and every single time I learned something new. There's new data, there's new ways to look at the economic importance of downtown and how we plan for the future. This is a fantastic presentation. We would not have this presentation if it wasn't for Pam and MG&E and her friends at Vanderwall and Associates, in particular, Rob Gottschalk and Lupita Alvarez. We want to acknowledge for their amazing work. Honestly, there's new data today on the presentation from the last time I saw it. So really important to level set the importance of downtown, and no better person than Miss Downtown herself, Pam Christensen, the Economic Development Director. I think you have a new title at MG&E, though. I need to learn your new title. And longtime DMI board member and board member of Starting Block and so many amazing things downtown. So let's send it to you, Pam, and your lovely dog just over the left-hand shoulder there, taking a nice snooze.
Thank you, Jason, and I am going to pummel you when I see you. Thank you, everyone. Really happy to be here, and I'm just hoping that my dog doesn't do anything embarrassing while I try to give this presentation. So if he starts grooming himself or anything, if you see me doing a quick lean over here, that's because we want to keep this PG this morning. So thank you, Jason, and you are being way too modest. A lot of this presentation came out of the work that Jason and others did really during COVID, when we took a hard look at downtown to figure out what is needed, how is downtown going to survive everything that happened in 2020 and continuing. And so one of the things that we realized that we really needed to show people with data, with facts, how important and key downtown really is to the city of Madison. We always say things like downtown is the economic engine of Madison, but we wanted the kind of the facts and figures behind that to prove that. So let me share here. All right, everything good? You guys can see it?
Awesome. We can see it great, Pam.
Great. All right. So before we start, and I know some of you have seen this before, so if I screw anything up or miss something, feel free to jump in. Like I said, Jason, in your 10 times of seeing this, so you probably could speak right along with me on it. So, but to kind of start and to ground us in what we're talking about when we talk about different parts of the city. We're going to focus obviously on downtown and that economic impact, but just to kind of help ground with the whole overall area. So we'll be throwing out some different terms as far as geographic areas. And the first being, the city of Madison, obviously, that's the black boundary here. And that includes some things that will be annexed in between now and 2040. So then there is the central area, which is about 1/4 of the city. And that's the red boundaries that you see there. You've got the greater downtown area, and that's the pink area. And that really goes from Camp Randall over to the river. And then finally, central downtown, and that is defined by DMI, borders that we should all be pretty familiar with. So this area, what is really interesting about this small area here, 608 acres, which is kind of crazy ironic, right? So 608 acres. And that is 1% of the city's land area. So, but in this 1% packs a powerful punch. It's 10% of the entire tax base for the city of Madison. So $3 billion generated in this area. It's holding 10% of our population, a little over 20% of all of the employees. So 50,000 people come down to the Isthmus area here in the central area to work each day. Well, we used to. Obviously, that's changed a lot in the last 18 months. And 17% of all of the businesses in Madison are housed down in this area. And it's kind of crazy, again, thinking about, the smaller area, 42% of this area is generating that tax base. 58% is non-taxable. So you've got the government buildings, you've got the university, you've got nonprofits and places of worship that aren't adding to that tax base. So 42% of this area is generating those numbers. So let's look at the tax base a little bit more. When you look at central downtown, that 608 acres, you've got a value per acre of $5 million. If you compare that to the city of Madison, you can see the acreage goes from up to 51,000 acres, but that value per acre, when you look at the entire city, is just a little over $500,000. So downtown is 10 times more in value per acre than the city of Madison as a whole. When you look at that compared to some of the other areas around town, how does that compare? The American Center is about the same size, and that is coming in at $378 million. If you look at the far west side, that's a big swath, and that's including the Research Park going up to Old Sauk Trail, the Westtown area. That comes in, the next closest at $1.8 billion. But again, central downtown, almost twice that at $3 billion. And then just because we like visuals, just kind of showing what that looks like when you compare that $5 million to some of these other key spots around town. We also wanted to look at what this compares to, sorry, I can't make that disappear. What that looks like compared to other cities that are comparable to Madison, places that we like to kind of benchmark against. And so one interesting thing, Milwaukee, when you look, we've got very similar value per acreage. So we're close to the Milwaukee value. But then you take a look at Des Moines, which is kind of a sensitive thing right now in the Ironman community, because our Madison Ironman that always happens that second weekend in September is actually moving to June, and Des Moines is getting the full that weekend in September, which is going to be kind of a big adjustment. And Des Moines, their value per acre, half of what we have. Columbus, similar, very similar. But when you look at the downtown value, we're still 2 million over what they're at. So again, we're doing pretty well when you compare us to other areas. We also took a look at the commercial and residential area. So central downtown area has 10% more commercial tax base than the rest of the city. And that's important because usually the areas where you have the higher commercial tax base require less services. You've got more employees and employers versus residential, where you see higher demand for services. So 15% of the city's total commercial tax base is housed in the central downtown area. Talking a lot about the property tax, we thought it would be important for everyone to know, if you're not familiar, where your tax dollars go if you're a City of Madison resident. So for every dollar that you pay in taxes, 45 cents is going to the school district, and 38 cents of every dollar is going to the city, 13 to Dane County. So when you take a look at the general fund, 73% of that fund is made up from those property tax values. So downtown is obviously contributing a large part of that. So $25 million is going into the property tax, into the general revenue fund from downtown. So again, that 1% is doing 10% of the city's tax base. And just to put that in perspective, so the amount that downtown is paying for, that $25 million, would cover all of the planning and development budget for the city of Madison. Or another way to look at it, when you look at the Madison Fire Department, we're paying, downtown pays for about half of the Madison Fire Department budget. We all know the impact of tourism on downtown, and we saw the major impacts of not having that tourism, those tourism dollars come in 2020. So these numbers are from pre-COVID, obviously. So when you take a look at visitor spending downtown, $38 million local tax revenue generated in 2019. So that visitor spending, $303 million, 4,000 plus jobs are supported by that visitor activity. And you can see, obviously, food and beverage, lodging making up the largest part of that. So downtown also plays a key role when it comes to room tax revenue. So our downtown area generates 25% of the total room tax revenue for the city of Madison. And that's important because that money supports things that are near and dear to our heart, like Monona Terrace, the Overture Center. Also, Destination Madison gets a large piece of that. And that's really important because they do an amazing job getting those visitors, getting the events here to the Madison area. So when you look in 2019, room tax collections, $18 million. Again, that was obviously hit pretty hard last year. We also took a look at the bid, and this probably will not be a surprise to most of the folks on this call because you guys know about the bid, know the great work that Tiffany and her team do there. We've got 392 businesses within the bid. 42% food, drink, another 20% retail. So over 60% make up that food, drink, retail, those things that are important to our visitors. You've got the local ownership. I mean, the majority being local, very few chains in the downtown area. We also took a look at who owns the parcels in the downtown area. And when you look around the square, you can see that there's a lot of larger parcels and they're mainly owned by a handful of groups. The blue here is ULI. You've got Mullins in kind of the orangish mustardy color here, Hovde with the red buildings, and then a handful of other owners. When you look at State Street, things look a lot different. You've got a lot of smaller parcels with various owners. And again, when you look at the impact of COVID, this was a really important thing to consider because COVID, the impact on State Street, you've got the first floor space that is a much higher percentage of revenue in these smaller buildings. The buildings around the square, you've got the typical, a lot of times the area leased out to retail type operation, but they still have revenue coming in from the floors above. Again, obviously that was impacted by COVID as well. But when you have all of these individual owners, a lot of times, couples that are working, living in these areas, and they were hit really hard, obviously in 2020. So we also wanted to look at who is living in the downtown, what is the socioeconomic makeup of the area. So a couple of things of interest on here. So when you look, not a surprise, 20 to 24-year-olds is the largest group, 44% of the total population from 2020. But what was interesting was the jump that we saw in the 25 to 34-year-olds. I mean, this 20 to 24 has always been high because of the student population, but we saw a significant increase, 2,000 individuals added into the downtown in the last 10 years in that 25 to 34-year-old area. So when you look at that, I think we can chalk that up to the Cap East area and the desire to be downtown for the younger population. Now 30, sorry, when you're thinking of younger, I used to think 34 sounded old when you were in college, and now we're looking at those as that younger population, but definitely an increase there. So 2,000 added where the city lost almost 1,000 people in that age demographic. Not sure where, oh, there we go. So there's a lot going on this slide. Apologize for that. I'll try to leave it here for a minute so you can kind of read it all and see it all. But really what this is showing is that On the diversity side, that both downtown and the city are getting more diverse. So that's a good thing when you look. We used to have this green part here is showing the white population. And so in 2010, we were at 84.5% white, and in 2020, 80%. So compare the city of Madison, kind of similar, 79 to 75%. So we've had 42% in the greater downtown population, 42% increase in the non-white population were added in 2010 to 2020. Out of that 42%, 64% identified as Asian. I think what's key about this is how we respond moving forward in the downtown area. And I think that we've got some great examples. And again, the work that Jason and others did in trying to address the business mix and getting a more diverse business mix on State Street to accommodate these changing demographics. The pop-up area on the downtown is a great example of that. So we want to look at the development projections and where will things be going from here? So here's a map of all the different parcels in the downtown area. And when you put that non-taxable acreage on there, so all the purple sites on here, purple parcels are non-taxable. So then layer on that areas that are unlikely to change. So we won't see any kind of future development because these are already kind of low density residential and they're likely going to stay low density residential. Zone that way, houses, smaller apartments likely to stay the way that they are. These are areas on the black that we have overlaid that are unlikely to change because those parcels have already been redeveloped or they already have a higher per square foot value. So we used $150 per square foot as the benchmark for that. And then put on top of that, local, national register historic districts and some of the limitations that you have on development there. So what's left? We have the red areas are showing places that there could be commercial, employer growth, redevelopment in the future, places that we can add jobs. And the yellow is showing areas where we'll likely see future residential growth. So you can see that's not a lot of parcels left. But that does show that could be another $2 billion in additional tax base by 2040. So with 11,000 new jobs, 11,000 new residents. When you look at just the central downtown area, that equates to about 3,000 new jobs and 6,000 new residents. So what does that all mean? We've got about 85% non-taxable and areas unlikely to change in the central area. So what happens on the parcels that are able to be redeveloped will really matter. And again, just kind of showing the central area and projected new tax base for key areas and how that compares to other parts of the city. So again, about $1 billion in central downtown compared to some other parts around the city. So this is what Jason was referring to as some new information based on feedback that we had received in giving this presentation and talking about it. And I think we presented to the bid a couple weeks ago. And one of the requests after that was, you know, what's happening right in the core of downtown around the square. And so we've got the square kind of divided into 3 rings. And if you're colorblind, I apologize for this one because it's going to be kind of hard to tell, but you've got the inner ring. So right around the square here. So looking at that, and you've got really about 2 parcels that are potential for redevelopment because there's just not a lot of other areas that haven't already been redeveloped or things that aren't going to change. So this inner ring, you've got the middle ring here that's kind of in this magenta color, and then the outer ring with the yellow. So really, when you look at this, you can see that the middle ring is where things are going to be happening in the future. So about almost 600 thousand new commercial square feet, maybe up to 900 residential units added. And then if you look at that tax base and look at the significant increase, like 6 times more than the inner ring. And then you've got the outer ring as well with, again, a couple of parcels that are currently being talked about for redevelopment. And I guess maybe that's kind of a clarification there too. Not to say that other parcels won't be developed, and things that are privately owned right now could obviously be redeveloped, but these are kind of the things that are sort of been talked about in the public so far. So projections, when you look at the city as a whole, you can see the different areas. We divided things into the west side, central area, north and east. And so again, downtown is where things are happening. When you look at the number of jobs, the number of residents added by 2040. So looking at 23,000 jobs, 27,000 new residents compared to some of the other areas. When you look at the jobs, residents, again, downtown, carrying water, carrying the bulk for the rest of the city. So about $4 billion in total for the city. When you look at commercial and residential coming down the pike by 2040. So what does this all mean? I'm trying to sum it up. The downtown area is a major generator. It is bringing a lot of money, a lot of tax value to the city. But more importantly, I think downtown really acts as a bellwether for our overall economic health and our vibrancy. We saw that last year. When downtown does well, we all do well, the city does well. It's part of our personality, it's part of our culture, it's the tourism driver. When people come to Madison, where do you take them? They go to the downtown area. If you're trying to recruit talent, you're going to show them downtown, the amazing things that we have going on there. And the takeaways, this revitalization of downtown, there is a significant tax-based benefit and a ripple effect. Downtown carries a higher share of the city revenue. Because we have the limited geography with the isthmus, with the lakes, downtown really needs to be carefully cultivated to get the projects right. It's going to be really important that the right projects go in the right place at the right time. So what happened in Cap East and other areas, I think, is a really good example of things were very proactive, very intentional. It didn't happen by accident. It's always funny to hear people that haven't been downtown for a while that will drive through and be like, oh my God, that building just popped up. I can't believe that just happened. I think a lot of folks on this call who work in the development world know that that is probably the furthest thing from the truth. And it was, you know, years of work and meetings and things that had to happen to make those projects happen. So our city has a lot of needs, and the future revenue of the central area is going to be critical to addressing those needs and our recovery from COVID. So with that, I think that is it. So thanks, guys.
Pam, thank you. Amazing presentation. Again, there was so much new data and so much important data in this project, and how it was sort of laid out is different than what we've seen in the past. We've got plenty of time for question and answer. If you have a question, you just can send it in the chat. I can ask it. You can raise your hand physically. I can't see everyone on more than one page, or use the raise your hand chat function, just like our good friend Ron Luskin did. You hit the reactions button. You can raise your hand there. First question is to Ron. Good morning, Ron. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you very much. Pam, it's a great presentation. Proud to see a native of Kenosha like you doing what you're doing. I'm going there for my 50th high school reunion soon.
Nice. Stop at Tenuta's for me.
Of course. So Pam, probably a generation ago, we saw a lot more revenue sharing from the state, and that's kind of been curtailed over the past many years. We rely a lot on property tax from your presentation, perhaps a disproportionate amount. And my recollection is that there are people in Milwaukee who are beginning to try to appeal to the legislature, which may be a difficult task here, to enable, whether it be the city of Milwaukee or Milwaukee County, to be able to establish a sales tax. Because while you have indicated that tourists and people who live here generate a lot of sales tax, that's really collected by the state, and we have to rely on the state to redistribute those monies back to the localities. So do you have any thoughts about the possibility of a sales tax that we would control?
You know, Ron, I think I'm going to have to plead the fifth on that. As far as I have my own personal views, I would never speak for MGE on this, but I think that's a great discussion that DMI should have on the Government Affairs Committee. I think there's a lot of things that are being talked about, because you're exactly right. And we need to figure out other ways to generate revenue, whether, you know, things that have been talked about in the past, like an RTA, you know, sales tax, special assessments. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, but each and every one of those has obviously pros and cons and supporters and detractors. So I think that is something that, as all of us as very engaged individuals, need to think about and weigh in when opportunities and these options are thrown out there.
You know, Jason, if I could just add that might be a topic to discuss at one of our future meetings with the people from Milwaukee, about whether or not Madison, Milwaukee, Dane County, Milwaukee County ought to try to work together and seeing if we can somehow gain permission from the legislature to enact a sales tax, if that's what we wished.
Yeah, Ron, actually, that's an absolutely crucial topic, and actually one that Pam and I have thought about for years. We've had some good conversations, I would say, pre-COVID with our friends from Milwaukee, and they were making pretty good inroads, I think, pre-COVID on this subject. And so we need to revitalize that conversation. And I would also argue, just as Pam did at the end, transportation is so key to that. And on Friday, we're lucky to have Dave Steele from the regional, I can never remember the exact title of the organization, the Regional Transit Leadership Council in Milwaukee, who are pushing RTA pretty hard in the Milwaukee area in the southeastern section of the state. And obviously, you know, Pam and I were good fortune to be at a few of their meetings and have talked to them about what they're up to. And so Dave Steele will be on our panel this Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. So I think that's a great first place to start the conversation. But Ron, absolutely, government relations and other groups can talk about it. We have it kind of scattered throughout our civic engagement agenda as well, particularly when it comes to regional transit.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, more questions for Pam. I love this game of Stump Pam. We should see how.
Not hard to do, Jason. Not hard to do at all.
No, I'm already in enough trouble.
That's a pretty low bar.
I'm in enough trouble. We got more questions for Pam. Oh, come on, Troy. Oh, there we go. Troy or Ann have a good question.
Oh,
Ann,
I thought Troy, go ahead, Troy, if you had one. Oh, no, he's just calling you out.
No, I was just calling him out because he's always got good questions. Yeah.
I was just wondering, and I know you didn't deep dive into this, Pam, but I think there was a footnote about COVID and the implications for demand and on some of these assumptions for new property. Can you go back to that slide or tell us, kind of add the COVID lens over this and tell us what you think it means for some of these cost projections? You know, we're in such a critical time where, you know, we kind of can see some of these opportunities or not. I think, you know, we can look at this as a really rosy picture, but if we don't kind of seize the opportunities during COVID, it might not be so rosy coming out of it.
No, you're exactly right, Ann. And I think we used a 25% reducer when we were doing those future projections. So it will be really interesting to see what comes out of and how these numbers change. You know, I mean, we know about the room tax revenue and the hit that was, you know, taken on that. I think, what did it go down from 18 million to 9 million? Does that sound right? And the ripple effect that had. But as far as, you know, we're obviously, Madison has done well when you look at the feedback and the studies that are showing that we're poised very well because of the diverse mix of businesses, the university, government, having a stronger economy to bounce back faster than other areas. But I think this presentation, if comparing from the 2019, which is what most of this data is from, and then what it's going to look like if you took a 5-year snapshot from 2020 through 2025, we'll see some pretty dramatic differences there. That's why, again, looking at this group, looking at the work that Jason has been spearheading, that's why that is so important. These downtown, we had 6 different committees at one point, Jason, looking at things through COVID and talking about everything from activation to events to the economic impact to diversity and inclusion. So I think that's going to play a huge role moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. So the 25%, was that 25% discount every year? So it's also an opportunity if we don't have that big a hit, or was that a one-time? How?
I think so. I will check with Vanderwall for sure.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of in the weeds. I was just curious. It's both is it the right assumption, but also is it an opportunity? If that doesn't happen, how much more tax base could we potentially add?
I think that's a great point. And I do think it was not a year by year. I think that was an overall reduction that Vanderwall looked at and had very good reasons for doing that, which I can't tell you what those are.
Thank you.
Questions for Pam. Thank you, Ann. I've got a question about the current development. We actually have several developers on now: Ann, Stacy, Dan, other people, Gretchen, Tara, that are involved in development. A significant amount of development right now in the downtown area, right? Particularly in multifamily housing. I think back of napkin math, we've got about 2,000 apartment units that are either in construction or in entitlement. And one of the things you mentioned is we got to make sure we get this development right in the limited land that we have. What do you see as a sort of, and maybe an answer for Ann or anyone else that's on this call as well, what do you see as the sort of near-term and then long-term future for downtown development over the next couple of years and then 5 years plus?
Say the question again, Jason. I'm happy.
An answer.
Pam looks like she wants someone else to jump in on this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was asking the developers asking for
anyone can answer that question.
So the question was what again, Jason? What do we see for the next 5 years for multifamily trends?
The near term and sort of longer term development downtown. Obviously, we're in a bit of a hot streak of development right now with multifamily, but where do you see sort of the future? Seeing all this reporting and how we have limited space and how we have to get development right. How do you see the future of development downtown in the next sort of 5 years?
Yeah, I can give my take, and I would love to hear from other folks as well. We're in a weird place where the city has some of the recent zoning changes have made approvals quite a bit easier. Again, some of you will recall the zoning changes this summer made projects of under 48 units a lot more feasible in kind of these mid neighborhoods, looking for that missing middle housing and to kind of expedite that approval process. So I think a lot of developers are looking to how can we take advantage of that zoning change and produce what the city asked for. And it's hard to make those projects pencil in this market where costs are where they are, construction costs and land costs. But more importantly, I think we're realizing too, for they're not super efficient. And when you're talking about trying to maximize those sites, you can see a lot of folks chasing these really big sites because A, they make sense on paper, but B, the need is really there. But those are much harder to get approved. If you can make them pencil in the right neighborhoods, you can have a feasible project. But I think I see that people are really stuck between these kind of 40 unit projects and these 200 unit projects. And I don't see a lot actually happening in between, which are probably the ones that are going to meet the needs. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that. Neighborhood costs, neighborhood opposition make it really hard for developers to meet the demand right now.
Oh, that's thank you, Ann, for that answer. We certainly appreciate it. We always love the chair answering questions too. As an expert in this field. Any other thoughts there?
Are there multifamily developers on that you rattled off? Or do you want to chime in? I don't want to be the voice of everybody here.
The whole group. Gretchen.
Hi there. I'm no multifamily developer, as you all know, but when I do hear from groups, I echo Ann's comments on the construction costs, because there are a number of parcels that I'm working with where construction costs are really the main hindrance between building a 4-story versus a 6 or taller building, just because the construction costs are so prohibitive. So my concern is that we're really not going to maximize some of the land that is available now simply because of those concerns.
Thank you, Gretchen, very much. It's good to see you too, Gretchen. Gretchen with CBRE, everybody. Any more questions for Pam? Troy.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be back from Seattle. As I look at the map, great presentation, fantastic data, and the graphic, I see at the east end of East Washington, most of our opportunities in that central corridor out towards the river. It's in red in one slide and it's in white in another slide. Pam, has there been conversation about that end? I've been gone for 6 years out to Seattle, about how do we catalyze that end of East Washington to catch up to what's happened to the west of it?
Troy, that's a really good, really valid point. There is a ton of potential there when you look along the Yahara River and some of those properties there. There was a attempt to show what that area could be a number of years ago. I've been at MG&E for 10 years. And when I first started, there were some discussions that showed a really dense development, but also kind of celebrating the beauty of the water, the connection between the two lakes. Unfortunately, it didn't have the aldermatic support that it needed at that time, and it kind of got buried. So we've got some beautiful drawings and schematics and renderings of what could be. And I don't know if anyone's been on the Yahara River recently, that even without the development piece of it, that is a happening spot. I mean, people are drawn to the water. There are, hammocks between every tree. There are people kayaking and swimming and paddleboarding through there. I mean, so people are using it. The city's done a nice job with the paths through there. I think the public market in that area is also really going to spur some further development. So hopefully that can be revisited. And because you're absolutely right that there's a ton of potential there. And what hopefully the takeaway that everyone got from this is that the remaining spots are going to be crucial.
Well, and I think another good point too is that sort of connection between First Avenue and Washington is also quite important with the public market going in, the Dorn project happening right now. Potentially, as Troy knows, the presentation was just at our last Transportation Committee on Friday about the placing of a rail station, potentially the idea of Yahara Station right there near sort of Burr Park, kind of right there. And then with the BRT, the connections with the great pedestrian and bike infrastructure they built, there could be a lot there. And it seems as though Amtrak has said, look, they're only going to put stations as close as they can to downtown, and that is the most natural rail station without having to double back, which they don't seem to have interest anymore. And that could spur a tremendous amount of development between our fellows, Midwestern economies of Chicago, Milwaukee, and Minneapolis. So really, really quite important project there. Ron.
Yeah, I was wondering if Pam or any of the developers on this call might answer this question. I see that we have a predicament downtown, particularly the area I'll focus on is the 500 block of West Washington, the 500 block of West Mifflin. We see in those parcels houses that were, when I was a student here in the 70s, were in bad shape, and they're only in worse shape now. I believe there's I forget the developer family that is putting up an apartment building on the corner of, is it West Wash and Bassett Street?
Yeah, the Avenir, that's Keller's project.
Yes, Keller project. And yet when I think about those properties or a property like that coming up, it seems as though it's not going to end up being student housing. So it seems like we're in a predicament where we have those parcels of land with very old housing. And and what will be the appetite for us as a community to redevelop some of those areas, and what kind of predicaments is that going to create for the need for student housing?
Good question, Ron. And I think you have, similar to State Street, when you look at that area, it's a lot of individual, private owners. So there's not, a big, chunk that would be an easy redevelopment project. But if you keep going down West Wash, and Jenny, I'd see your comment there on Regent Street, and that's absolutely a great example of another area that has a ton of potential. Jason and I have actually been part of a group for a couple of years that is looking at Regent Street and the redevelopment possibilities. So there's actually a great document that we can share that shows what Regent Street could be with some new development, both residential, commercial space, everything from kind of like a Little Italy section at the first part of by Park Street and Regent, going over to the stadium with some amazing potential and again possibilities there. So that's something that maybe at a future meeting, Jason, we could show some of the things of what could be. The city did just do a TID for that area, so there is some potential there. Unfortunately, there's not any economic development projects identified in the TID, but we do hope to change that. So there's been a group that Dave Cheslevich was kind of our unofficial leader for a while, and looking at all of the parcels and again, what could be. So I think we had quite a few of the property owners from Roger Charlie from Budget Bikes, the Rocky Rococos, actually Jason started at Hotel Red as our representative, the neighborhood committee. So that's definitely something that I think we could talk about with this group in a future meeting.
Yeah, absolutely, Jenny. That's a really important question, because obviously a lot of the activity and the focus is on East Wash, right? And people say the growth is going to be on East Wash, but Regent Street is ripe for it. And honestly, there's a really good plan for Regent Street that the city and the neighborhood put together, what, Pam, 6, 7, 8 years ago? Honestly, the project that Pam is talking about, which was called the Regent Revitalization Project, it started with some housing in the neighborhood, Greenbush and Violas, to turn it over to single family. They had a small cap TIF fund, which was very successful and turned over probably a dozen to two dozen houses. And then it moved towards what's going to happen with Regent Street. And we are actively involved in that conversation. DMI is now, for lack of a better term, housing that conversation. It's on my to-do list to call the group together in the next few weeks here. It's a really interesting group of people that includes UW, it includes both hospitals, it includes MG&E. And Jenny, there's a ton of development happening already on the street, right? There's a new hotel just behind on the 600 block. If you're going to Rotary today, there's Lexi London is going to be giving a presentation on the Bayview project, and she will also be our speaker at the October What's Up Downtown breakfast. Really important project. There's another project at the corner of Regenton Park, a 10-story tower that's been proposed, and you've got little cool things like Leopold's bookstore that have gone in on the street. The work of Steve Brown and Hotel Red, and Steve Brown's amazing work they did on the Regent Street to really clean it up. And now they have Greenbush, right? So there's all of these cool things that are happening with that area. So I think it'd be great if we had that conversation at some point. So I'll work with Han and Ann to try to make sure that we have that. And if anyone's interested in participating, I should acknowledge Dan Seeley is on this call. Dan Seeley has been a long time proponent of this work and has been very active in this. So a huge thanks to Dan. I know Alan Arnson was when he was both alders, the 3rd and the 13th and the 8th district. Matt Wachter was a big part of this group for a long time. So it has the right people at the table to get the work done on the Regent Street. So Jenny, thank you for that question.
And Jason, thanks for recognizing Dan. I see his big D staring me in the face, and I can't believe I didn't mention Steve Brown Apartments with all the key people that were there. So sorry, Dan.
Yeah, and honestly, some of the work has already been started, right? I mean, take a look at outside of Hotel Red, the amazing work that UW Athletics did with the plaza, with Crazy Lakes Park in the city. They should be acknowledged for that work. These parts are starting to come together, and the idea really is that you've got these two massive people generators in Camp Randall and the Cole Center that aren't really even very well linked, even though Dayton Street honestly technically connects them. Regent Street does as well, but how can we make a better sort of in between those two ends of the barbell? Awesome. Any other questions for Pam Any questions for anyone? I guess anyone's answering questions now. And Matt, do you want to answer some questions? John, Madeline, Patrick, anyone can answer questions if they would like.
Tara, any fantasy football recommendations? Her husband is a fantasy football guru, if people don't know.
Oh, that's actually really good to know. Should have called you
Not
last
right now.
week.
I've been too busy to pick his brain, so.
Well, don't pick any Vikings the way our season started. So there you go. All right. Looks like we are out of questions here. Thank you all for being here. Pam, cannot thank you enough for this amazing presentation. And we'll send it over to you to say goodbye for the meeting.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us this morning. Thank you, Pam, for all the work that you and Vanderwall have done to build the case for more solid downtown to capitalize on this property base that we've grown here. It's great to have the data. It's great to know that the words downtown drives Madison are not just words. We really are. And how can we seize the opportunities that still lie before us? So thank you. This is recorded. So I think that if folks want to look at that presentation again, Jason can make links available. And I look forward to many of the ideas that were brought up here, especially the Regent Street conversation, I think would be a really fun one to have in this group. So thanks, Jenny and Pam and Jason for bringing that forward. That's it. I have nothing else. Hope to see you all soon online at a DMI event or in person at one of the upcoming ones.
Yep, and just a quick note, look for it on our YouTube channel. It'll be live there. And then I forgot to mention one event, Cap Times Idea Fest this weekend. 3:15 to 4:15 at Shannon Hall also will be recorded. There's going to be a presentation moderated by me, so maybe that you don't want to go. But anyway, it's moderated by me about the future of downtown. It will have the Mayor Rhodes Conway, Ellie Westman Chen, the President CEO of Destination Madison, Jessica Cavazos, the President CEO of the Latino Chamber of Commerce, and our own Amy Seppel, the COO and Senior Vice President of the Edgewater Hotel Group. Really interesting panel about how we're moving forward. Please check it out if you can. Cap Times Idea Fest this weekend. 3:15 to 4:15 at Shannon Hall, and also recorded. Thank you. Sorry, Ann, I did not mean to go over the top.
No, I think there's so much, there's so much going on. So if you ever think, is DMI have their eye on Regent Street? Ask Jason. There's a great chance he has an eye on it, and there's some subcommittee he's running to address whatever the thing is. There's a lot going on. Please pay attention. Yes, thank you for, I do want to hit that ideas fast. So thanks for that reminder, Jason. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Pam.
Bye, everyone. Thanks,
Jason.
Pam.
Thanks.